Hello, and welcome to the Joy CEO podcast. I'm Lori Pine, your host, and today we are going to talk about why joy. Why would I structure my entire business, my entire brand, and now an entire podcast around joy? When we hear people say the Joy CEO, I often think that they're assuming soft, cute, maybe even nice, and a little fluffy. But let me tell you something. Joy is the hardest most strategic decision I've ever made. I didn't choose joy because life was light or fluffy. I chose it because I knew I couldn't lead or live well without it anymore. I fought hard for joy. And so today on this episode, we're going to talk about why joy of all things. And at the center of my coaching, my business, and leadership identity, why I chose joy to be the epicenter. There was a turning point in 2021 when I left my corporate career. I'd been a 25-year executive in consumer products goods, working for big companies like Coca-Cola, Campbell Soup Company, and Anheuser-Busch. In my last role, I had managed $1 billion team, and we'd gone through the pandemic together. And when I left, I took some time and actually charted kind of what was my history. Where had I come from? What had I done as I started to create a new brand for myself? And when I did that, this pattern emerged. Every time I was down and out, I bet on myself. And believe me, there were many times I was down and out, whether it was getting divorced with two very little boys, ages 2 and 4, whether it was the very sudden loss of my mom, whether it was somewhere in the midst of 7 states and corporate relocations or 14 corporate reorgs. I think I lost count at 14 or could have been more. But every time I was down and out, this pattern kept reemerging that I would bet on myself. And in that, I would make my way to the other side. And ultimately, there was joy there. So, there were times when in the midst of this corporate world, I would be encouraged to present, to speak, or to lead the way my boss did, the way somebody else did, and not my own authentic way. And that feedback felt really critical. And quite frankly, it felt really suffocating that I was constantly being told to do it different, to be somebody else, to, sometimes be more like a man. And yet here I was just trying to be me. So there were a couple of critical moments. One of them with a senior vice president. I'm a naturally positive person, always trying to find the solution. And this SVP just snapped at me as we're trying to really problem solve something that was going on in the business. And he said, "Jesus, Lori, not everything is rainbows and unicorns." And it was one of those moments that was almost stunning. Like the room stopped. And I was able to say, I know that, but there is a solution and we can find it. And, of course, not everything's rainbows and unicorns. But the sky isn't always falling either. We're not living in a Chicken Little movie. And it was in that moment that I really realized that that particular company was incredibly dysfunctional, incredibly toxic. I liken that experience to the TV show The Bear, if any of you out there have watched that. It was almost like the episode of Thanksgiving where Jamie Lee Curtis drives the car through the garage. Oftentimes that was what it was like to be in a meeting at that company. You never knew the moment where something just outrageous was about to happen, completely unpredictable, complete sideballs, pivots were going to happen, funding would be pulled, customer commitments that we couldn't fulfill. So leaving there was not at all a sad day for me. But what I did realize in my interaction with that SVP is that I wasn't trying to sugarcoat reality. I just refused to swim in the problem. And trusting my instincts, leading with my own voice, and staying solution focused became my superpower. And in that, I was able to be a really effective leader. And joy became the anchor to that. Not a mood, not a roller coaster, not a fleeting sort of fluffy feeling, but it was an anchor, a mindset, a methodology where I could come back to myself and really count on me. And, that leads me to really do some work around joy as a leadership strategy. And I've done a tremendous amount of research over the last couple of years into this very idea. Is joy a leadership strategy? Is there data that supports it? Neuroscience, science, who's done the work? Where is this data? And so when you're leading a team, growing a business, or influencing a room, your energy really matters. Your presence matters. And if you're drained, disconnected, or bitter, people feel it. People know who is a joyous leader and who is an absolute ogre to work for. And that shows up in engagement surveys all over America, all over the world. People know. And we also know that engagement is a driver of profitability, of retention, of how people see themselves as a part of an organization. And that makes all the difference in the world. So joy gives leaders so many different benefits: clarity under pressure, authentic presence, connection versus control. You can actually connect with your team, the ability to inspire, not just to direct. There's some staggering statistics that I've come about with joy, like that joyous leaders are 31% more productive, that they're 3 times more creative, that leaders who lead with joy will positively impact sales, customer service, profitability in double-digit percentages. So when you think about how joy impacts the business, it's profound. And there's such a case for joy in your leadership. But there's also a case for joy in every area of our life. I know that's certainly been the case for me. When I focused on gratitude, on the people, the moments, the blessings that were right in front of me, a lot of the head chatter quieted. Frustrations felt smaller. The things that I was really annoyed with or aggravated with seemed to dissipate a little bit. And I became a better version of me. And this gratitude practice is only 5 minutes every morning for me to write 5 things I'm grateful for. Sometimes it doesn't even take 5 minutes a day. But this simple practice has really shifted a lot for me. In these last couple of years, as I've been researching joy, I've come up with my own definition of it because I felt like I couldn't find a definition that really was concrete and summarized it the way I needed it to. And it's this profound and holistic sense of well-being and contentment that transcends momentary happiness. Let me say that again. It's a profound and holistic sense of well-being and contentment that transcends momentary happiness. Don't you just feel that in you? It's not this fleeting moment. It's not a vacation that you're going to take or a bag that you're going to buy or a new car that is going to just make you happy for a few minutes. It's really that inner sense of contentment that truly money really can't buy. And as I define it like that, joy shifted how I parented, how I showed up as a partner, how I rested, how I led my team. And it helped me to stop performing and really just how I could come into alignment with who I wanted to be in the world, in every facet of my life. It taught me how to live beyond my title, that my title wasn't everything, that who I was as a human was really what mattered. And I could lead from my truth at that point. And that was really helpful. When I left, some of the notes that I got were really about the human side of my leadership, how I had made a difference, how I had impacted people in a way that they just hadn't been impacted before. And that those were the really special notes. It wasn't just about the metrics and the way I grew the revenue and that the customer hadn't been in that sort of revenue shape in the entire time we had been calling on the customer. But, joy also allows me to protect my boundaries, the boundaries that really matter without thinking twice about it. I have no guilt in keeping these boundaries. I know where they lie today. And for a long, long time, that was not the case for me. I really struggled with boundaries. It's the same for my self-worth. I really no longer feel like I have to chase my worth and that I have something to prove. I really can align with my worth and choose where I put my efforts. Decisions, I lead from clarity. I'm no longer burnt out. I know how to take care of that well-being today. I get my 8 hours of sleep at night. I drink my 64 ounces of water. I no longer have a diet of Diet Coke and pretzels every day for lunch. I actually nourish my body with some protein and some vegetables. And that makes me better. That makes me show up in the world differently when I'm rested, hydrated, nourished. And then legacy. We often don't talk about legacy because we're so busy in the daily grind. We're hustling. We've got a to-do list a mile long. We're thinking about the next thing, the next promotion, the next project, the next meeting. And so legacy is like, oh, well, I'll think about that when I retire or I'm old. But legacy matters today because people aren't going to just remember your results. They're going to remember how you made them feel. It's the famous Maya Angelou quote. People are going to remember how you made them feel. And if you're always too busy and you're on the go and you're in a rush, they're going to remember that. But if you can take a moment and connect with people and ask them how they are and remember their child's name or remember that they had a state championship baseball game this weekend, those connections matter. So I just want to say, why joy? Because joy is fuel. Joy is power. Joy is what helps you rise without losing yourself. Because God knows we can really lose ourselves in a world where so many leaders are burned out, frustrated, annoyed, or even broken, not even sure which way to turn. We have so many corporate reorgs going on, downsizing. The headlines are doom and gloom. And I just encourage you to want to lead differently. And I know that I wanted to lead differently, and you can want that too. And joy just might be the superpower to help you get there. So I hope you're going to hit the subscribe button Listen in as I interview some extraordinary leaders on this podcast who have just come from crazy experiences. They're going to tell you about some of the worst jobs they've ever had, to rising through corporate ranks, coming into high level executive positions. And they're going to kind of peel back the curtains of how they did it, what happened. And it wasn't all glamorous, but we're going to talk about those moments of joy that really matter for them. What are the things that they do to make sure that they're in touch with it, and how they show up in a way that makes a difference for themselves, for their teams, for their families, just like I've learned to do, just like I teach my clients and my consulting clients to do. So if you are wondering why joy, not only did I think I needed a little bit, but I thought the world certainly needed a little bit too. So a couple of reflection prompts for you. Where have you been settling for achievement without fulfillment? And what might shift if you let joy lead, not as a reward, but as a real leadership strategy for you and who you want to be as you show up? So glad you could tune in today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like us, give us a 5-star review, leave a review, let us know what you would like to hear about. And so glad you are listening along to the Joy CEO podcast.